Soundstripe.
Hello, welcome to Hawk Talk, the only podcast where you can stay up to date with everything that's going on at the Bateman's Bay Football Club. And also, interestingly, the only podcast where you listen to two Muppets talk for an hour and no less at the end of the podcast than you did at the start. I'm your host, Joel Erickson. Over there is the co-host and club champion, Mick Kenny. How are you, Mick?
I'm good, thanks, Jolie. Good to see you, mate.
Yeah, it's been a few weeks. We had some technical difficulties. We might run through the reasons and throw some people under the bus later on in the show. We'll see how we're feeling, but yeah, we're back, which is great. And our special guests this week, back-to-back guests celebrating 100 games. This week it is our superstar defender, Nathan Munnerley, more affectionately known as Munners around the club. How are you, Nathan?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks, Jolie. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Thanks for coming on this week. I don't know what I've said that's funny, Mick. Why are you already laughing at me?
No, just Munners was real loud and aggressive. It was good.
Yeah. He knows what this podcast's about. He's just getting the hostility in early. It's great. Hey, Mick, let's talk about a little bit about what's happened on field since we last had a podcast, which was 3 weeks ago, rather than the usual fortnightly schedule that we've been kind of sticking to this year. Yep. 2 games to talk about for the seniors, because you did have a bye in the middle for Labor Day. We'll go over round 8 first, because round 8 was a special day. Of course, last podcast we talked about Liam Bacco playing his 100th. It was Ladies' Day, yep. A big day at home, and 3 wins for the seniors, including what looks like probably one of your closer games in the first grade. It was a 35-point win. I say close. It was a 35-point win over ANU, but given you've been touching up a few teams this year, Mick, I'll ask you as a coach, you have been touching up a few teams. We'll get to last weekend's result later, but do you think the team gets more or less, or is it just a different feel after a tighter game, so to speak, like
that? Yeah, I think Munners will probably justify for it as well, but I think it's just the slow starts that we keep having all year, and every game, or actually on the weekend, was no different. In ANU, they sort of jumped us pretty early. They kicked, a few quick goals, and they were right in the hunt right up until sort of half time. I think we went in at half time about 5 points up or a goal up, and obviously ran away with it in the second half. But I don't think it sort of changes too much. I think we're like we always sort of say, we're around our process and stuff like that. But I think it's the slow starts that are definitely a little bit of an issue for us at the moment. And obviously coming up against a very good side in ADFA this weekend, I think we're going to have to make sure that we really do start the game well, because if we let them get the jump on us like other teams have been, we might not be able to rein them in.
Yeah, we've touched on it a bit in the past, like this year on the podcast, but it is a bit of a different feel to because this team traditionally has been one that races out of the blocks when you're up and about. You'll kind of, if you're really feeling it, you'll have the game almost over by quarter time and definitely by half time. I'll ask you this question, Munners, because you've been part of the senior setup for a few years at the Seahawks now. Is there a different feel this year, or is there anything you can kind of place your finger on to say this might be the reason for the slow starts, or do you just think it's one of those things?
I feel like in the back line, even though they are coming down, especially against Eastlake on the weekend, they were coming down, taking big grabs out of the air. I didn't feel like we were going to lose at all. It just felt like we still had the same process that we were going to do. I didn't feel nervous or anything. I wouldn't say there's definitely nothing that concerns me too much. Like, I'm definitely not sitting there stressing out like I have previous years. I feel pretty confident that even though it's a slow start, we've got the fitness, the process. I feel pretty secure in getting the win most weeks.
Do you feel like this year's team is one of the fittest you've played in, Munners?
Yeah, definitely. Even with those GPS trackers, it's interesting to see like how many kilometers people can actually rack up in a game.
And I'd imagine Skip Thaney's probably right at the top of that list just about most weeks, knowing how fit that man
I got
is.
close to him. I couldn't beat him.
Munners is up there. You've got some good numbers on there, Munners.
Yeah, maybe one. Adfa might be the week.
I reckon if I know anything about the way Munners plays his footy, he's probably got the most high effort sprints each week.
Oh, that's right.
But also possibly the most time walking around as well. So, let's talk about Division 2 as well. Obviously, it's a team that has struggled up to this point, but they had a very nice win against ANU, and they've also made it back-to-back wins, which we'll touch on later. It feels like a team that starting to get some of the troops back, Mick, and probably not one that the other teams would want to be letting scrape their way into finals at this point.
Yeah, I think ANU was probably the game where it just all clicked, mate, to be fair. We had a few guys back in and in sort of key positions that made a big difference. And everything just sort of, just clicked right from the outset. And I don't think anyone would have thought, we'd come away with an 80-point win. I think it was second on the ladder versus second last on the ladder that day. So, really happy with that. And I think last week, I think we kicked 7-14 or something. We were, 1-5 at quarter time, and we probably, we could have been 4 or 5 goals up at quarter time, but we didn't probably have the troops on the track that we wanted last week. But obviously the good part was we were able to manage to get the win, and it was pretty tight there at one stage. We managed to kick, I think it might have been maybe 4 of the last 5 goals to win that game. So it was, really good, tough win, and obviously still keeps us in the hunt now. And there's a few rumours around this week that the big fella might be back. So I know you talk about it every week, Jolie. So, but I think it might be getting that. I think it might be getting to that time of the year.
I think I don't think we can call him Greeny anymore. I think his nickname's going to be Lazarus. It just every year he rises from the dead and drags a team into the finals. It's great.
So there's a few rumours around that we've got. Now a couple of guys, sort of key guys, back in this week too. So
that's exciting. I just want to give a special shout out to Josh Wallace as well from that game against ANU. Guy who obviously was a very big part of the back line for the reserve grade last year, went forward and kicked 5 goals, which is a pretty handy return there for the big. He'd be 40 now, wouldn't he, Josh Wallace as well? So he's obviously still operating pretty well for an old fella.
yeah,
love me for saying that as well. And let's look at the women's game on Ladies' Day. They had a big win, and this one would have been fairly sweet given previous year's results. But this was a 8-4-52 to 1-4-10 win over ANU. Changed time slots, and apparently it's good for them because that's a big win over a team that's probably going to be challenging them when the whips are cracking at the end of the year, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I feel like they internally, I think we probably thought they were flying under the radar a bit, and that ANU game was obviously going to be a bit of a tester, but they just come out and absolutely dominated. And each week they just gradually get better and better. And I noticed the inclusion of Gabby Johnson last week as well in that Molonglo game. So obviously a league best and fairest winner. So that's only going to help their cause going forward as well. So I think ADFA are going pretty well in the women's space this year as well. So a bit of a test for them on Saturday.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that inclusion of Go, I did notice that when you released team lists last week. That inclusion is that's a massive get to get her back into the fold. When she's up and about, she's just about worth the price of admission herself. Which, look, I know is free because we don't charge for admission, but I feel like I feel like the saying still goes here, right?
We know what you mean, mate.
Yeah, thanks, mate. So that also Rising Stars are in action that week, both against Eastlake. Interesting result in the women's. They had a draw against Eastlake.
Yeah.
It's a team that, like, we talked about their first up win and how exciting that was. They probably haven't reached those heights quite yet, but looking at their past 2 weeks, it seems like they're starting to play some good footy again.
It was crazy, that Eastlake game, and even last week was a bit the same. But that Eastlake game, I actually left at half time, and they were up 42-8, and I thought it's in the bag. And then I was doing a few things with the kids, and we kept checking the live scores, and I was like, "What?" And then obviously, ended up been a draw in the end. And then likewise on the weekend, Belconnen was a bit of a reversal. So Belconnen come out and they looked like they were sort of going to run away with it. And the girls managed to kick, I think, the last 3 goals of the game. And from all reports from people that were there, they reckon if it had went for any longer, our girls probably would have ran away with that. So to go down by 4 points against Belconnen, who are sitting second on the ladder, shows that they're not too far off. I think that draw potentially against Eastlake may hurt them down the track as we get closer to finals, but they've definitely got the talent there to beat those top 4 sides as well. So still definitely a big genuine chance to play finals of the Women's Rising Stars.
Yeah, and tell us about the Rising Stars men, because they unfortunately have had two more losses the last 2 rounds. But
Yep.
that's a team that's obviously had a lot of turnover. How are they travelling at the moment, Mick?
Yeah, so I think for these guys, they probably put together really good patches of footy, and it's probably not too dissimilar to when myself and Billy were coaching them last year. If you weren't looking at the scoreboard, you would think that the games were a lot tighter than what they were. And on the weekend, I think they were probably a bit off, and I think they'd be the first to admit that. Second quarter was probably not their finest moment, but they come back out after half time, and I thought the first sort of 10, 15 minutes of that third quarter, they were really, really giving it to them, and kicked a couple of goals that quarter as well. So I guess it's just one of those things, mate. We know with that age group that we're probably just a little bit off, and we are playing some kids in that age bracket that we're looking to be the future of the club in years to come, and they'll get a few years in that age group as well. The guys like Ryder Freya and James Collins and Indy Follett's, these type of guys, Nick Wayne. So I think they've just got to keep. I know it sounds a bit cliche-ish, but they've just got to keep sticking to their processes and keep really working on the brand of footy, because the brand of footy that they're used to in that Sapphire, I think that's probably the issue that we've found is just not up to it into that premier competition in Canberra. So I think for those guys, it's really buying into what Anthony's trying to do and buying into that brand of footy, and I think eventually it will come.
Let's talk just briefly about the results from last week as well. 2 men's, the first and the reserves both played Eastlake. The women had a game against Molonglo. Big win for your team, Mick. It was 103 points over Eastlake. Buster Ware kicked 7 goals to continue his absolutely torrid start, although you can't really even call it a start at this point. He's just
is he averaging 5 a game or something? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, he's tops of the goal kicking list. I also want to mention here that one Nathan Munnerley is in the best list 2 weeks in a row. How often does that happen for you, Munners?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think it happens too often, but maybe good for maybe 4-ish a season, 4 or 5, I think.
I think you must have hit a purple patch in form. Just those getting the hair flying back, those darting runs off half back that you're famous for.
Yeah, I do enjoy running off the back line. It is good fun, especially when they don't run with you.
Do you take any advice from your coach who also likes to sneak up and try and snag himself one later in a game if the game's in hand? Or
he probably goes up further than me. I did have a shot on the weekend, but I did a sprint beforehand. Probably didn't have the legs in me.
Bit tired, yeah. I've got a story about that later. Actually, you'll love it, Munners. Div 2 had the 6-point win against Eastlake. This was a game 7-14 to 7-8. So probably maybe not as tight as the scoreboard suggests, but then as they say, bad kicking is bad football. So you've already touched on that one. That's a really probably a good win to consolidate what you did against ANU the week before. And Division 1, the women just kept on keeping on. That was a 31-point win over Molonglo. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mick, but I believe that means that both of our first division teams this year are so far undefeated.
Yeah, correct, mate. Yep. Obviously a good position to be in, but with some really, sort of tough games coming up as well. But, it gives us a really strong platform in both of those grades now, in this second half of the year. So, obviously well done to both the Division 1 teams.
Look, let's talk about the tough run, because it starts this weekend. with a big game, one of the toughest tests in the comp. I think you'd agree. ADFA. This one is at Hanging Rock Oval, all 3 games. So, I mean, obviously, if you're going to play ADFA, you probably prefer to play them in Batemans Bay because they are a notoriously tough road trip. But it feels like a pretty good time of season to get a test like this, Mick.
I think so, mate. I mean, there's never really any free hits during the season, but I mean, for us now, if we did cough up a game, it wouldn't be sort of dire, So, but we're obviously not going in to cough up a game. We really want this test, and like you said, we've had, a few weeks where, really most of the year we haven't really been tested too much. I think the closest that's got to us was Woden was 34 points, and then obviously ANU 35. So I think the boys are up for it. I think we're really excited about the challenge, and we've got. I know JT is out this week, is obviously a massive loss for us, but we feel really comfortable with the guys that we've got in our team, and the guys that come in and out. That everyone's buying into what we're trying to do, and I think if everyone's on their game and we play our best footy, we should be still undefeated Saturday afternoon.
Munners, I'll ask you this. Obviously, ADFA play a very fast style of football when they're up and about. They like to move the ball quickly, try and kind of run teams off the paddock. You're one of the guys in this team who's probably notably one of the quickest guys in this senior setup. Does it change the way you play? Do you think the way that ADFA plays, or do you just kind of stick to what you would usually be doing against any other team in this comp?
I think this year more want to kind of stick to what I've been doing this year. Because in the grand final, I felt like I went more back into my shell, kind of like played like real defending rather than doing what I do best, which is kind of reading the ball off the ground and then just getting the scraps and then going and make my dude work with me, which I think makes my job a lot easier when they're worried about me as well.
Mick, do you think the game? I mean, obviously not trying to give too much away here, but traditionally when you've played ADFA, you probably do try and control the footy a little more and slow down the game, try and get it on your terms. Will that be the kind of plan you'll be looking at this weekend?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's got to be a big pressure game. I think that's always the mindset when you play against ADFA. I think traditionally, obviously, really, fit, physical football side. But when it comes to the skills, they're probably not quite as good as us, or that's sort of the way that we approach it when we play them. And we sort of feel that, if we can bring that pressure, put them under pressure, make them rely on their skills, that the turnovers will happen a little bit more. And for us with our zone setup and our zone structure, it's just trying to force them into making as many errors as they can when they've got the ball. And then likewise, we've got enough talent that we can really attack and hurt them on that turnover as well. So I think that's probably the way that we approach it, mate. But it's probably about our inside mids who have been exceptional already this year. It's about them getting first touch on the footy and hoping that we can obviously hurt it off the back of that.
Let's talk about the 2 Rising Stars teams as well. They're both heading up the mountain on Sunday.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about those games, Mick. What you're expecting out of the two teams this weekend?
Yeah, so they're split on the weekend. So the girls are off to Queanbeyan, who are traditionally very strong in all their women's grades. To be fair, so I think they might be on top of the ladder in the women's Rising Stars. So a bit of a test for them, but I think when the girls played them down here, they weren't too far off. It was a bit like probably the men's Rising Stars most of the time. They just had that little lapse in concentration, and Queanbeyan just sort of jumped them. So be interesting to see how that game unfolds there. And the boys are off to Marist College on Sunday. So I sort of picked them to be the team to beat this year. But that was without seeing Belconnen. I saw Belconnen on the weekend, and they're something else. So it'd be obviously interesting to see how they go against them. I know the boys really weren't happy with their performance on the weekend, so look to see a bit more fight out of the men's Rising Stars this Sunday for sure.
Yeah, it's a big weekend of footy coming up Saturday. The 3 senior grades at Hanging Rock get down there and
Yep.
cheer those 3 teams on. They're all going to be facing a
We've
pretty
got juniors the same day too, mate, at Hanging Rock. So
yep. So
swing
seniors on
night.
field 1, juniors on field 3. It's going to be a massive day down at Hanging Rock.
Yeah, swing night. 9
Um,
games of footy.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, and as we mentioned before, it's a free day out. Get your full day of entertainment. Put some money in at the canteen. It'll be great. And then Sunday, if you find yourself in Canberra, why don't you get down and cheer on one of the Rising Stars teams, because I'm sure they would appreciate the support. Mick, let's talk about the other massive bit of news from the last 3 weeks, and it's a massive step into 2026 for the club. You've signed the inaugural. Well, maybe inaugural is not the fair word, given you've been up to first grade in Canberra in the club's history, but your first grade coach for this step to first grade.
Yep.
You've signed Sam Martin to come and be the first grade coach. Mick, tell me how excited that news and that move makes you.
Yeah, pumped, mate. It's not very often that Plan A comes off in these scenarios. So, Marto's a guy that I've known for a very long time. He's from Merimbula. I actually played footy with him back in 2009. I think he was 16 years old in that premiership year down there, and the following year he went to Ainsley and played Rising Stars, and then he got drafted to Adelaide the year after that. So, but yeah, obviously had a close connection with him for a long period of time, and was probably someone that I identified when we were going to make this step. When we talked about making this step a couple of years ago, that he was the guy that I wanted. So I planted a few seeds nice and early with him, and yeah, probably just really lucky, mate, the way that things have worked out. So he's obviously got family here. His sister lives in Maruya. His mum and dad are in Merimbula, and his wife's parents have just retired from Canberra down to Dalmeny. So it's and they've just had their first child not long ago as well. So I think it's just the right time for Marto and the right time for us. So it's just coincided really well, and I think he's just going to bring something a lot different to the footy club, and the footy club's had a stale old coach for the last 10 years, so might be a good time to bring someone else in who knows what he's talking about.
Mick, that's meant to be my line. What are you doing?
Well, I got him before you, mate.
Yeah, I know. You knew what I was going to say. Munners, how do you think the playing group has reacted to this news? Because obviously there's going to be spots up for grabs in the move up to first grade next year. Are you and the rest of the playing group excited kind of for a fresh voice, or do you think it's just kind of one of those necessary evils, so to speak, of having to cut the tired old coach, as he mentioned, and and bring up the young gun? How are you feeling about the
Well,
news?
I don't think we need to cut Poon because he's a bad coach. But I think new coach is more than fine. I think it'll be good going up and with a new coach, and then everyone having to work a little bit harder to try and make the team. Like he won't know any of us. We might know a few, but everyone will have to put in a bit more effort to try and get their position. But I'm pretty.
Mick, I think Munners is trying to get himself into the best list for the third straight week here. He's
Mate, he's
pumping
on.
your tyres real well.
I actually told him on Saturday night. I think it's the best footy I've seen him play. So the last 3 weeks, he's been on fire, the big fella.
Thank you.
How good. I think that's all we need to mention. Is there anything you wanted to say? Any events coming up, Mick, that you need to give a plug to?
Yeah, we've got a few things coming up, Jolie. We've got a trivia night at the Steam Packet, not this Saturday, next Saturday. So it's the 28th. Should be a good night out there. Just get on socials and newsletter. You and enter your teams of 8 into that, and then sort of looking further down the track, we've got a pretty big day for our reverse draw. So it coincides with a pretty big day of footy. I think we've got the under 18s boys playing that day as well. 1985 premiership reunion the same day, and then obviously the reverse draw that night. So $50 a ticket will get you free grog and a feed for 2 hours, and give you a chance to win a couple of grand in money. So get around that.
Celebrate a premiership and give away a bunch of cash. It's a perfect weekend.
Beautiful.
All right, without further ado, let's get into the more interesting part of this podcast, which is where we pick the brain of Nathan Munnerley. I'll hand over to you, Mick, first with your questions. I think you were having some troubles finding them before, but it sounds like you might have spotted your old piece of paper there.
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. I'm one of those old blokes that still uses a pen and paper,
I
but I've
don't
found
mind
it. First question, Mutters. Favorite teammate at the Seahawks?
Oh, geez. Probably in the tougher here, trying to break friendships. Probably Brody and Mick.
You can't pick two, mate.
Go Michael, because I played more with him. You're going to get me killed for this one. Ready before this too.
Strangest food combination.
Well, I don't think this is that bad, but so cheese, peanut butter, and then Croskets.
Can I ask Munners, what order does that go in? Because that's going to change.
Oh, so
A Crosscut at the base, I'm
and
assuming.
then peanut butter, then cheese.
Yeah, okay. So you're not spreading the peanut butter on the cheese like an absolute degenerate then?
No, it's usually my late night snack, to be honest.
I think it's all right. I mean, I wouldn't eat it, but sounds
That's
all
probably the weirdest thing I eat.
Go-to karaoke song.
I don't do karaoke at all, but I was
It'd
going
have to be an Ed Sheeran song, right?
No. Probably maybe Justin Bieber, Baby, maybe. So I usually play at school for the kids, so I feel like I know those lyrics perfectly.
Oh,
Don't like that, Jolie?
I think
He's
that's
not
the
great.
best. I think that's the best answer we've had to that question, to be honest.
I even had a Justin Bieber haircut phase at one point. So
I couldn't imagine anything. I couldn't imagine you without the
No.
flowing locks, mate.
I couldn't either.
yeah, I don't know what I'd look like. We're just going to leave it at that.
Next one. If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Ooh, anywhere in the world. Probably America, like prime when the sport's on. So you watch
Yep.
the basketball, NFL.
Yeah,
Like that's
it's a good
probably
answer.
something I need to do, actually.
And the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Maybe I wouldn't say. Oh, yeah, I guess it's pretty good advice. Start of this year, been in troubles with the knee, and I was thinking of not playing like next year. And then he said to me, "It's like you'll look back when you're 50 and be like, you should have kept playing." So I was like, "Yeah, true." Like I'm kind of just hanging it up because I'm thinking I'm getting old, but really, I'm still pretty young. And I definitely would regret it if I just retired because a little niggle.
You can't say that you're getting old on this podcast, mate. That's
well, I guess you can look at Poon.
I think I've got a few years on you as well, mate.
I'm waiting for your return, mate.
Oh, that's going to be a while, I think. I think I've told Poon this before, but if you guys make a grand final, my wife said I can come down and watch yours. Hopefully go one better this year. So that might be the great return, but it's going to be based on your performance, Munners.
Don't worry, I'll get it there.
I knew you would.
And last one from me, Munners, is if you had a time machine and you could go back to any place or time, where would you go?
Any place or time. Probably maybe go emotional, maybe back before my dad passed away and just had like another conversation with him. Probably that'd be more the emotional side of the one. But yeah, probably that.
Good, Russ. It's good.
That's a
We
fair
need a
answer.
bit of heartstring on here.
Yeah, I got some.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. It can't be all silliness. Hey, Munners, let's. I guess I'll start grilling you now. Mate, tell me about your history with the Seahawks. When did you start playing? Kind of who got you into the club, and yeah, I suppose yeah. Just tell us where you came from and to get where you are now, about to play your 100th game.
Well, I actually never played AFL when I was a kid at all. So I played NRL for the Sharks in Maria. Then I played soccer, and then went to uni to be a teacher in Canberra. And then Michael told me to just come play footy one weekend. So then I don't really know how I decided I was actually going to do that. And then ended up continuing playing. I think Kempy was the coach when I first started at that Eastlake ground we played on the weekend. No idea what I was doing, but he just chucked me in the back pocket. And now I've kind of been stuck in the back line ever since. Well, I played a little bit in the midfield when I was playing Resi's under Crofty. And then I got poached.
Yeah, right.
Kind of been a blessing.
Okay, so I suppose you would have been what, 18, 19 when you started?
Yeah, probably 19, 20. Yeah, 19, 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of I know you said it was Thaney who kind of said come down and play, but what kept you with the sport?
Good question. Probably playing back then. We had all our mates playing. So like Brody was playing, Mike was playing, Rory, Brody's brother Griffin Wall playing. So I felt like it was just like something to do on the weekend, even though I was like not really from the coast anymore because I moved to Canberra. So it kind of gave me a reason to go home to see my mum, my stepdad, and then I don't know, I kind of just became obsessed with it afterwards. It's pretty interesting for someone who never played AFL. A bit of a,
Yeah, right. So you said you played soccer before you kind of came over to
only 2 years for Maria. I only like in the last 2 years of school just played soccer. Again, that was just random as well. It usually just becomes random. I just switch over sports codes.
You're just an athlete, mate.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
So you start kind of playing 19, 20. You'd be in your late 20s now, I'd imagine, Munners.
27.
20,
This
so
year.
yeah,
I'm 27. That's mid.
I can't. It is mid. It's mid. I wish I was still in my mid 20s. It's a sport that's probably it's kind of taken up almost a third of your life at this point. That'll make you feel old. What do you think your favourite thing about playing for the Seahawks is at this stage?
Ooh, that's a great question. Probably, I guess, I feel like the relationship I have with everyone, even because I played a lot of Resis. Even last year when the Resis won, they were like talking about that it was like you were a part of this still. Just like feels like a big, massive family kind of. Like where everyone's really connected. Like you don't really feel left out or like there's no like awkwardness where you're kind of just lurking on your own. Like everyone kind of feels like a family. Even that I'm up here training with all the Canberra boys and girls, like I still feel super connected on a Saturday when I go down.
I'm gonna use this as a segue into my story, Munners, the reserve grade team, because there was a game last year. You might remember we went up to play at Allen Ray Oval against Ainsley, and one N Munnerley was on the team list for the reserve grade. Somehow I ended up in the forward line from memory. Might have kicked a big goose egg, I think, from memory. And look, that's not the key point of the story here. The key point of the story is we then obviously had our first grade game, and I think it was Rexy. Rexy went down with an injury, and obviously running the rotations was a bit tough because we didn't have too many guys on the bench that day who probably could slot into that position. And I think at one point I might have played you in the forward line.
Yeah, I was in there for a little bit.
Yeah,
I get a bit lost when I'm down there.
Yeah, well, you said that I think you came off the ground at half time, or it might have been 3/4 time, and I think you came up to me and you was like, "Mate, I don't know what I'm doing down there. Get me back." And I think you might have had a goose egg in that one as well.
Yeah, I missed. Yeah, Buster gave me a crossfield kick in the Resi's game, shanked it, and then I missed one on the run as well. So it wasn't a pretty day, and I was cramping as well.
Is that when the coach takes away your kicking license?
I feel like I should pick one already this year, but I'm just not getting there yet.
He usually misses the easy ones and kicks like the miraculous like snap from the pocket or something.
Something stupid. Sometimes I'll just end up too far in the forward line when I run off the back line. I ended up in the square a couple of weeks ago with snails trying to kick a goal.
Yeah, I've just that's my memory of you, Munners, was that, I mean, a lot more memories than that, but just I have very fond memories of that day with you basically admitting that you weren't cut out for the forward line work that day. You just wanted to stick to what you knew. And I do remember you were cramping up because you'd played you were 7 quarters of footy at that point.
I don't think we did too well against Ainsley as well.
I think we won the game, but it was a bit of a weird feeling in the sheds afterwards from memory.
Yeah, it was a bit of a closer one.
And I also want to compare that to the day that Buster played 2 games against Gugong and kicked, I think, 13 goals across the 2
That,
games. So
that was the day, wasn't it?
that was a good day. I think he still refers to himself as owner of Gugong,
Yeah.
based on that day. So yeah, that's my story, Munners. I hope you appreciated that one.
Yeah, Buster reminds me about that quite frequently, mate.
If I know anything about Buster, that does not surprise me at all.
Yeah.
So Munners, you're playing your 100th game this weekend.
Mm.
How are you feeling about that achievement?
Well, I actually never thought I'd even play 100 games for a single team. So I think I never even actually thought about that would even happen. So I think it's kind of special. I'm pretty keen. My family's coming. So they all come. A couple are coming from Canberra. Mum's coming from Churros. So I think it'll be a good day, and it's a good game as well. Like it's not just going to be a flog.
You ready to do the banner beforehand? Have you thought about whose shoulders you want to be on after the game as well?
Probably two short people, or maybe get some tallies out so I look a little bit taller.
That's true. Where's Tegs when you need him?
Yeah,
He could just put you on your shoulders like a dad. It'd be great.
Yeah, if we didn't have that washout round, Backo and I would have had our hundreds together, and I was going to get on his shoulders, and someone was going to pick both of us up. We would have mapped out, but washout round.
Hey Mick,
That would have been brilliant.
philosophical question for you, Mick. How many people do you think you'd need to lift Backo?
Well, who lifted him off last week? I can't remember.
It was two of the. I think it was. I felt like it was Josh Mulrooney for some reason.
Yeah, it probably was. He's quite a
He's a nugget, to be
thick
fair.
man. Yeah.
I could be wrong there.
Oh man, Munners, looking back on your time with the Seahawks, and obviously it's not over, but what do you have kind of a favorite memory, something that sticks out to you as like, yeah, that's the pinnacle of my Seahawks career?
I feel like obviously winning the grand final against ANU in 2023 that was pretty special. But I feel like most weekends, I feel like I just look forward to it each week. Even sometimes you might not think over the Christmas time you don't want to play, but it's like the second you have one sniff, you're like, it's like the only thing you look forward to in the week. And then even being like disconnected from the Bay and training up here, it's like still pretty exciting getting to go to training every Tuesday and Thursday up here after the team. I think the whole thing's just a ball usually.
What about the other way? Is there a low point that you kind of reflect on as something that you've I don't know, maybe used as the biggest lesson in your career so far or anything like that?
I feel like maybe sometimes training up here can be pretty tough. I think even trying to like get better, there's like we don't have too many first graders up here, so it's like sometimes the numbers are pretty low. But I feel like I've enjoyed the whole time. I definitely haven't thought about quitting other than retiring, but not quitting because of any bad circumstances.
Yeah. I
I
got to say one thing that one thing that stuck out to me last year, and you probably could comment on this as well a bit as well, Mick, is of all the guys in that first grade setup, I think not many of them are as level-headed as Munners is in terms of like his mood does not change from week to week. It takes a lot to annoy him. It takes a lot for him to get really excited as well. He's just kind of a very level-headed, calming. You know what you're going to get from each week from like a, from a mental perspective. And I think that was probably it's probably one of the biggest things that intangible things that he brings to the team. Yeah. What are your thoughts there, Mick? Let's pump Munners' tires for a while.
Yeah, mate, I feel like he's a guy that you really want to play with, like you love playing with, and I've obviously had the privilege of playing right alongside him for a long period of that 100 games as well. So, like you say, he's pretty calm and influence. He'll soon tell you if he's ticked off with something as well, though. But we generally try to fix it straight away. But yeah, no, definitely a joy to coach. Great bloke to play footy with. You know what you're going to get every week. And like I said, mate, I feel like he's playing the best footy that he's ever played over the last couple of weeks. And yeah, he just seems to be getting better and better. And adding a few little strings to his bow every year. He adds something different to his game, and this year we've moved him up the ground a little bit more, on that half-back flank, and just seems to be having a massive influence. So, well done, mate, on 100 games, and hopefully another 100 more would be good.
Yeah, I feel like maybe. I don't know how old I'll be when I hit another 100. I appreciate that, though.
Yeah, Munners, I was gonna ask you because obviously you've played most of your career in the back line, and you're not the biggest bloke going around. I think that's a fair thing to say. How have you kind of focused your game in a way to make yourself as effective as possible without being able to kind of be that, I guess, that prototypical big strong body that people are looking for? Like, like you're not a key defender. So what have you always kind of focused on to make your role as impactful as possible in the back line?
I think just kind of, don't know if this sounds too good, like give my dude a little bit more space so he kind of thinks he's open a little bit, but I back my speed to usually get there and either make it hard for him to mark or get it to the ground. And the second it's on the ground, I feel like that's my ball to win, no one else's. So I think that's what makes me probably a good defender.
Yeah. And Mick said you've been playing up the ground a bit more. I suppose that's been enjoyable.
Yeah, I feel like most teams haven't been able to run with me. I know Woden were doing some weird switch. They were switching people onto me, but I felt like no one can keep up. And I can get back usually. So I feel like I just make that forward work even harder. I feel like sometimes forwards are a bit lazy. So I feel like I can make them work a little bit harder.
You got any comment on that, Mick?
Forwards being lazy.
Yeah.
Not our ones.
I got to say, I'm a pretty lazy defender. Luckily, Munners was there half the time to tackle him.
Oh, man. I did have a question loaded up, and then you had to go at the forwards. So I forgot what my question was. So I'm just gonna think on that for a bit. But Munners, the jump up to that was my question. How does it make you feel when you can recognise that a team is putting kind of some extra work into you?
Oh, I actually don't mind it because I feel like they stop playing their game and they start playing my game. Woden did it a few weeks back where he was defending me, so I kind of got to just do whatever I wanted and like basically made me like a wing, not even a defender, because he was just following me around, which it's quite enjoyable when you don't have to defend and they're just going to chase you around the park all day.
Get off the chain a bit.
Yeah.
Now, is that something that you have noticed, Mick? Is there extra attention going into Munners because of his strong running game this year?
Yeah, I did notice that against Woden. It's funny when you can identify that. I think it happened to JT round one as well, off half-back flank. And it has, believe it or not, it has happened to me once or twice in my career. But yeah, it's a funny situation. I did notice when they were doing it to Munners, and like you say, it probably just releases you a little bit more. You don't feel like you don't have to defend quite as much, and you can just keep playing your natural game.
Yeah. Ironically, it probably works in your favour in some ways.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more relaxing rather than getting under big high balls trying to smother it.
Yeah. Mate, I want to get your views on this year's team as well. I'll ask you a couple of questions here. Who do you reckon the most improved player is in the senior setup for 2025?
That's easy, Rory.
Rory?
Yeah, I feel like he's been killing it. I don't like giving him any compliments though. Except he's got no left foot, which he burns me a few times when he cuts back inside. But he's been playing really well.
I got to say, towards the end of the last year, we started trying Rory up forward a bit, and he'd just kick you a goal every game. Like they'd often be the most arsey goals you've seen, but he'd just find a way to contribute, and you knew he was always going to get, his effort was always going to be real high, his pressure was going to be really high. So that answer doesn't surprise me in the slightest, to be honest. Who do you think the most important player has been for the season? And I don't want you to just say Buster because we know what Buster's doing, but is there a midfielder who's really been ticking along nicely? What's your views there?
Give you one from each role. How about that?
Yeah, okay. I don't mind that.
I feel like JT's been great in the back line. Like, he kind of reminds me of Duds a little bit. Plays a little, like, not the same role. Duds is more like a backo, but he's just got, like, that knowledge, and it's, like, feels real calm down there. Like, I don't feel under pressure. He just lets you go. He talks you through things. I think JT in the back line, unreal. And I think Thaney, he's a beast in the midfield. And then the forward, I feel like recently Cal Dawn, I underestimated how far he could kick and how straight he kicks. So I feel like those three have been good. Obviously,
What's your thoughts on Dorney's set shot routine?
I don't know, but he gets his leg up high.
It's unusual, eh?
He really
It works though.
And then Buster's obviously killing it, but I think having Dorney and Bros down there just feels like way more deadly now.
Yeah. It feels like Buster's really thriving on being the number one target in that forward line. Which, look, there were probably parts of last year where he was, but obviously there were a couple of extra tools in that forward line who are also very, very key players who got a lot of the targets. I'm also like that. I love hearing that about Cal Dawn because I think he's a kid that we all recognise had a lot of talent. Probably just needed to pick up a bit of confidence, and it appears that he's well on the way to doing that. So I like your answers, Munners. You're a good team, mate.
I get to see it all from the back line. So one good thing, you see everything unfold.
What about an under the radar guys? There's someone that you kind of go, but they may not be getting the accolades. They may not be getting like the names on the best list or anything like that. But they're just kind of going about their role, doing it really well, being a real key part of the wins. Is there anyone like that comes to mind?
Jeez, I feel like I'm talking about me back line now. I feel like Cal Mack and Backo. Like I feel like they do the dirty job in Twine. They have to do the dirty job. I kind of get the funner job out of all of them. So they kind of just have to mark up lockdown defenders or lockdown forwards. So I feel like they've been working hard. It's just like selfless role they got to play. It's not really any glory on marking someone for the whole game.
Yeah.
But midfield, I feel like he's on a tear. But I feel like I feel like everyone knows he's been putting in work. So like Seb's working hard.
Mate, it sounds like you got an embarrassment of riches there, Mick, from what Munners is saying.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I like his answers. He answered them very well. I reckon he's on. I reckon that Rory, yeah, huge. He's going so well on that. Probably a bit of a new role on the wing, but yeah, he's playing it to perfection. He's having a great season.
Yeah, he wasn't going to play either at the start of the year. We had to con him into it. So, yeah,
Funny how that works, isn't it? Hey, Munners, look, thanks so much for being on the podcast this week. My last question is one that I'm going to just start asking everyone because I'm hoping everyone has the same answer at this point. Who is the biggest pest at the club?
I would actually have to say mine's probably a bit different to everyone else. Mine's probably Rory, though.
Okay. I can live with that.
Well,
it's
yeah,
not the answer.
surely you weren't hoping for Backo, were you?
It wasn't
No,
Backo.
I just wanted to say
Backo's not a pest. It would be Rory then Buster.
I must just bring out the worst in him, eh?
Yeah,
I must just bring out the worst in Backo. I don't know what it is.
No, I can't hurt no Backo. He's a great lad.
Okay, fair enough. we do love you, Backo. Yeah, and we've talked about this before, but you had me rattled last time. So like you've obviously you're winning whatever this war is. I hate to admit that. Mick, do you have anything else you needed to ask Munners? What kind of shampoo he uses, anything like that?
Nah, I don't think the shampoo will worry me too much, mate. But
I don't wash my hair, so
Oh no.
nah, obviously, yeah, big day for Munners on Saturday, and yeah, been a great player for the footy club for a long period of time now, and like I said, just getting better and better. So big day on Saturday, mate.
Yeah.
keen as.
Well, thanks, lads. Another good episode. Actually, before we go, there is one more favor I want to ask of you, Mick. I think next week or next fortnight, I want to see a different hat.
Different hat.
There's a certain red hat that I think you should be wearing on the podcast.
Yeah, right. We'll bring it back. Should we do it for our next guest though? I'm not sure.
Probably not for our next guest, but next time we've got a more unserious one. I reckon we break out the red hat.
Yeah, right.
And it's not a MAGA hat. We're not about to out Poon as a far right person or anything like that. I promise you that. It is quite a funny hat though, but you'll see that in a few weeks' time. Hey, hey, thanks, lads. Good podcast. Congratulations for your 100th this weekend again, Munners. It's been great to have you on as a guest. He strikes me as a very intelligent man, Mick. And I'm not. I know that sounds condescending, but I promise it's not. I promise it's not.
I kind of have to be a little bit.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Only two of us on this podcast can be dumb, and Mick and I have have those spots sewn up. So yeah.
Right. Thanks,
Cheers, guys. Have a good
Cheers,
week.
boys.
Have a good fortnight. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Thanks, boys.